Have you ever wondered how an entire nation could get lost in the desert for 40 years? Well, Numbers tells us that story. This video is going to serve as an overview, maybe before you read the book of Numbers or potentially afterward, where you can go back and do a quick recap. Now, the theme of Numbers is really from Mount Sinai into the wilderness towards the promised land. And it's when a generation misses the promise. Now, Numbers is traditionally attributed to being written by Moses, and most likely it was written around 1446 through 1406 BC, and it's during Israel's wilderness journey. Now, the setting opens in Mount Sinai, where Israel has just received the law. They've been delivered from Egypt and they're on their way towards the promised land. And if you read Exodus and if you've read Leviticus, there's a lot of events that take place, and Numbers is a continuation of that exact same story. But what should have been an 11-day journey through the desert turns into 40 years. That's not good. And why? Well, in a nutshell, it's because of Israel's unbelief. Now, the main theme of the book of Numbers is God is faithful to his promises even when his people are not. It's a story about trust versus fear, obedience versus rebellion, and a faithful God and a faithless generation. Now, you might ask yourself, why is it called Numbers? The book begins and ends with a census, a numbering of the people. Now, there are two censuses. The first census counts the generation that left Egypt, or that had their exodus from Egypt. And the second census at the end counts the new generation that will enter the promised land. Between those two numbers is a funeral in the wilderness. You see, an entire generation dies because they refuse to trust God. Now, let's go over some big key events in the book of Numbers. First and foremost, we can't leave out Numbers chapters 13 and 14. Maybe you've heard of it as the big story of the 12 spies. Now, this is a big turning point for the Israelites. You see, Israel sent 12 spies into the land of Canaan, and 10 of them came back with a negative report, zero faith. 2 of them came back with a positive report, but even though the 2 had a positive report, Joshua and Caleb, the remaining 10 did not, and ultimately the people chose fear. Because of that decision, God declares that generation who chose fear will not enter into the promised land. Rather, they will wander for 40 years, and this moment changes everything. It shifts from conquesting to wandering. That's the first big event. Another significant event happens just a few chapters later in Numbers chapter 16. You see, a Levite named Korah, essentially he challenges Moses' authority. And there's a little bit of rebellion that goes on. It's all in Numbers chapter 16, and God really responds. In fact, quite dramatically, he opens the earth and the entire rebellion is swallowed. And this event reinforces that God has appointed leadership, i.e. being Moses, and rebellion against God has some serious consequences. Ultimately, it strengthens priestly authority after this event. There's another big event in Numbers chapter 21, and it's the event of the bronze serpent. After Israel experienced more complaining, venomous snakes enter into the camp. And God does something interesting. He instructs Moses to lift up a bronze serpent. And whoever looks at it in faith lives, and this becomes quite prophetic. Later referenced by Jesus in John chapter 3 of a picture of salvation. It's all in Numbers chapter 21. A fourth big event happens in Numbers chapter 22 through 24. And there's this pagan prophet named Balaam, and he is hired to curse Israel, and he actually winds up blessing them. And in the middle of all that, there's a donkey that's his, and the donkey talks, and it gets talking donkey, it's a little, but it's really significant to the overall story because it reinforces God's covenant promise to Abraham that ultimately Israel will be blessed, even when people attempt to come against them. Now, the structure of the book is divided into 3 distinct portions. The first is chapters 1 through 10, and it's preparation at Sinai. In section 2, or portion 2, chapters 11 through 25, it's failure in the wilderness. And in portion 3, chapters 26 through 36, it's preparation of the new generation. And it ends with Israel standing on the edge of the promised land, but this time with an entirely new generation. Now, the purpose of the book was to explain why Israel delayed entering the promised land, to teach future generations the danger of unbelief, to show God's holiness and justice, and to reveal God's patience and covenant faithfulness. Ultimately, this book isn't just about history, it's a warning, and it's also an encouragement. A big takeaway that Numbers teaches us is simply this: you can be delivered from Egypt, but still struggle to trust God in the wilderness. It reminds us that miracles don't automatically produce faith, that complaining hardens the heart, and that ultimately faith, and faith alone, moves you forward. Lastly, even when we fail, God still completes his promises. I hope this video has been helpful. I look forward to you diving into Numbers. See you soon.